Welcome everybody to episode 15.
Is it that many?
Yep, season 6.
Wow.
Season 6 now. How many have we got left in us? How many seasons?
Wow. We've got to have a break. We've got nothing to talk about. We just feel like we're just moaning each week. But to be honest, the more moaning we do, the more people watch. It's amazing, really, isn't it?
Yeah, good point. Just pull your mic a bit closer, bud. You've reminded me to thank everybody. For 2 weeks ago, we had lots and lots of comments and lots of views.
Yeah.
So thank everybody who participated. That was really good. And I don't know why.
I am okay, by the way. People said, "Are you okay? You seem really miserable and come quite passionate." Well, yeah, because
you are.
I am passionate, and that's what I love. And I've got no answers, and that's the annoying thing. And every time people come in the shop, it just winds me up, and it's like Groundhog Day every day.
But does it create lots of discussion points in the shop?
Yes, but there's no answer to it. Loads of discussion, but there's no outcome.
Yeah.
That's the frustrating thing about it.
I don't know how many comments we had. We had a lot, and there are lots of really good points raised by people.
There was, yeah.
Yeah. Just want to, before we get on to, we're going to actually mention and highlight 2 or 3 of them because it's going to link to the Winter League. That's what we're going to highlight from the comments. But I think it's worth talking about the seal situation just from the lack of... There was nobody pro seals in freshwater, which was quite interesting. Lots of comments about guys have seen seals in other locations. So personally, I just think that's so obvious that seals are mammals. They live in the sea. They live in colonies. They need to be where they like to live, in the sea and in their colonies. End of. How angling clubs like Peterborough District deal with that, I don't know, because it's a difficult one for them. But common sense surely has to prevail with that one. Now, if I dare mention this name very quietly, otters. As soon as you mention the word otter, people's ears prick up all over the place and they get ultra sensitive about it. We didn't mention much about otters 2 weeks ago. In fact, I think I mentioned otters just in passing. Wow. You think you shot someone's cat. It's unbelievable. Let's just put the record straight. I don't know about you, Al, but I don't mind the reintroduction of otters back into the ecosystem. However, my bugbear's always been, I don't understand why it wasn't done in small numbers in quite controllable areas where the scientists could observe what was happening and the otters were allowed to then distribute themselves naturally over a period of time over the countryside. Because the otter's an apex predator. To me, I don't know why that happened. Now, some of the pro-otter brigade, or us in pro-otter release program brigade, will say that's what happened. But I witnessed the opposite. I can't remember the exact year. It was 2006, 7, and 8 on the Thurn system. There were no otters, and the following year, I saw multiple otters during daylight every time I went. And then there are horror stories of the Waveney getting destroyed, fisheries on the Waveney Valley, fisheries in Norfolk, fisheries in Suffolk, hence all the otter fencing. Now, to me, that's because the otter was released in large numbers, therefore there wasn't enough food, therefore they had to eat to survive. They took large fish, carp, pike, etc. If they were released in small numbers, the impact would have been far less, surely. Don't know. But I just want to mention that one because no doubt we'll get more, I don't know, inflamed otter comments, which I don't mind, but people can't answer my question, which is where are the studies of the release program before they were released en masse? They don't seem to exist. I don't know what your thoughts are on otters.
I mean, the thing with otters, right? If you imagine a stereotypical otter scene where you see an otter in the wild, where would it be?
In Scotland, on a loch.
Would be
on the coast,
a river, a natural
by
river
kelp,
that has salmon runs and trout runs, and in a sort of a chalk streamy type thing, don't you? And you know, I don't think until they were reintroduced here in the on the drain system, the fens, that they just no one ever seen one, did they? And I think the way the drains are and how rich they are in fish, they're going to thrive, and they've thrived quicker than what they expected. Is that what you would say?
Well, that seems to be that what's been said by people involved with the release in the program, that they were surprised by how successful.
Right.
But if you release,
because there's nothing to back against them, is there?
Well, they're apex predator. So it's nothing against otters being re-released into the wild. It's just the way it was done, and it's scary. It's just people. I just don't understand why educated people who are intelligent don't seem to get it.
Mm-hmm.
But
yeah, it's like everything. It's, if it doesn't sort of affect you, you're not bothered about it until it affects you.
Because you can't see into the water.
Yeah.
This is always the biggest problem, because we can't see the effect. Because we know, and so do lots of experienced anglers and game wardens and people involved with the environment. It'd be like people heavily involved with RSPB. They can see the impact. People and the farmers, people who are heavily involved with this day to day, and who care passionately, will see, because they're from years of different data, as in catch results, blah 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 blah, whatever it might be. We can see an impact, and we have theories. And if lots of us kind of have the same information in our head, there's got to be something causing that problem. So it's a bit of a frustration, isn't it? But I just wanted to mention that because it was really good, all the comments. I think it's good to have a.
I think our biggest bugbear was cormorants, wasn't it? And I think that was that's what we was aiming at, really, more than anything.
It was, yeah. Let's face it, if cormorants are on a system, they're not there because they're sunning themselves. They're in a good shoot, because they have to eat to survive, which is not the cormorant's fault. That's a bird in nature that's been produced. The problem is there's so bloody many of them, and they're not the indigenous species they've come across, and that's the other frustration. It's not like it's the coastal shag or whatever we have on our coast that are in decline by the looks of things. It's this other subspecies that's come across, from what I can gather, and it's been plagued across the whole of Europe. Did you say France has now changed the laws?
Well, I think mainland Europe are trying to change the laws.
Are they?
Yeah,
because
Hungary, France, Holland. It's just, a few of the guys that come in the shop in sort of regularly, they go to Holland a lot, and they're having exactly the same problems out there. Yeah, it's just ridiculous.
It's not the cormorant's fault. There's just too many.
Yeah,
and they need managing. That's nature.
I didn't realise what you were saying. That was obviously sort of was a bit of a light bulb moment for me earlier when you was talking about that Grafham is shut now for fishing for a month. And I said, I bet the cormorants are having a field day, and you went, well, no, because there's no trout for them to eat. And it makes sense. If there's no trout there, no wonder there's even more in the fens, because from Grafham to here is not even 15 minutes in a straight line, is it really, for a bird?
No. And the birds use the waterways to navigate.
So
they soon work
no
out.
Wonder there's even more now. Maybe they've cleared out the trout and there's less fish for them to eat in Grafham, and now there are even more of them coming into the drains and lakes and everything.
Trout fisheries aren't going to stock in the winter.
No.
They heavily stock, obviously, pre-season, just before and during the first few months of the season.
Yeah.
And the trout get onto the insect life. But that's something I'm going to talk about later on, is fish behaviour. You'll know far more about this than I do. But yeah, the stockings decrease as the season goes on. Trout are taken, trout will die, trout are eaten by cormorants, and there's less and less. And also, what's interesting at somewhere like Grafham is the fish, that it's such a rich water. Sometimes, some Septembers, it's absolutely stuffed with fry. And by November, it's been decimated. Because like being a mackerel or a sprat on the sea, everything eats you. And I've seen hundreds of cormorants just literally going across it in waves. Rutland's got even more cormorants on it. I remember Guy Eldridge years ago was telling me he's a very keen ornithologist and very skilled ornithologist. They did this must have been 6 or 7 years ago now, 1 September, they did a bird count. They expected there to be 8,000 cormorants, and there was 12,000. It's incredible. But yeah, cormorants was the biggest bugbear, and if you think of places like Grafham, and the trout waters won't be stocking this time of year, So there's no point the cormorants being on there. But they can pick up the odd fish, but it's going to be hard work for them.
Mm-hmm.
And if they've cleared out sections of drains, they're then going to move in tighter on other areas that are more prolific. Hence what we were talking about 2 weeks ago.
Mm.
Yeah. We didn't want to start off negatively.
No. The thing is, I think the biggest thing is, as anglers, we all need to stick together, because to certain anglers, a certain predator is the cause of their issues. To other anglers, like us, cormorants are the biggest thing. And of course, we don't understand fully what mitten crab, crayfish have an effect on spawning and things like that. So, you know, no one really knows too much about these.
No, let's be honest. There are lots of variables at play here, and there's lots of different things that have an impact that we won't understand. We can see the cormorants. We know they eat. They've got to have a big impact. But you take water quality, pollution.
Yeah. Yeah.
We had a very good comment about pesticides in the water. Insects on the decline because of pesticides used in farmland.
I don't think the water's ever been as clean in a sense. It's like very clean water, isn't it?
But there are going to be so many variables that have an impact that it's not just one thing.
No.
I mean, me and Pricey we had a heated discussion at the Curry House, but he just wasn't listening. But there you go. He's Welsh, Irish, Scottish, isn't he?
Whatever he wants to be, whatever sport it is.
Yeah. But I felt the cormorants were the biggest issue for silverfish.
Massive.
But there are lots of other variables as well.
Even like commercials this time of year, the fish are down one end of lakes where cormorants have pushed even the bigger fish down to one end. It's not just, it's sort of, any fish is scared by them.
That's great. See, the predators, pike in particular, I think man has been the biggest problem for the removal. But there are lots of variables at play. So it's not just one thing. I just think, and I'm not right, it's just my own impression of it. Shall we get on to, I've got 3 really good comments about the Winter League, because you posed a question, didn't you?
Yeah.
So do you remember what you said?
I think it was as if anyone's got any suggestions of how we can change the format, maybe change looking at venues. And what I did say was, if anyone knows any venues that can hold 150 pegs on a natural venue in February.
That was the important bit, wasn't it?
February, yeah. This time of year.
Well, there
was lots of comments of venues, and there were some good comments as well. But I don't think they got the February.
Well, let's get to that bit in a minute, right? Because I'm going to flash this up on here. So it's Handyfish4534. Thank you for your comment. And they've put, I'm sure there must be places across the country that can host 150 anglers on a natural venue. It's totally unfair to expect anglers to travel 200 miles plus to the same old place every year. Lovely for the locals, obviously. Which is fair comment.
Honestly, as a local, if we're travelling to a better venue than we've got around here, by all means,
But again, it's...
Natural venues are on the decline. This is the biggest thing we're getting.
Problem, isn't it? Yeah. So, I mean, it's a fair comment, but it's about coming up with answers. Right, we've got a long one here from Sear10, I think it is. I'll read it all out. Great podcast again, lads. In my opinion, it would be great to rotate where the final is held, similar to the way in which the Nationals are rotated. I think that travelling up to the Fens detracts a lot of anglers from fishing the Winter League, and it will remove the constant home advantage for the Fen-based teams. Which is fair. That's fair.
But what local Fen-based teams won the Winter League?
I was going to say, none of you have done very good anyway. Right, hold on a minute. I've lost it. There are a number of venues in the southwest that could hold 150 pegs. Huntsville.
Right.
Kennet.
In February, though.
Right, let's go. Is it Kennet and Avon Canal?
Yeah, now that, from what I understand, the Kennet and Avon Canal is quite good, but what commercials have we got near?
Hold on. King Sedgemoor Drain was another option.
Yeah.
So this is a good, very good comment, because obviously some alternatives here. It would be great to have the final on a pure natural venue.
100% agree with that one.
Rather than splitting it with a commercial venue. So that's another question I'm going to ask you in a minute. Than splitting it with a commercial venue. Making the final smaller would certainly open up more venues, but you could achieve this through the old semi-final process rather than reducing the number of teams qualifying from each league. It definitely feels like the natural waters scene is dying off. The number of teams, anglers is dropping off rapidly. We could do with a governing impetus to help resurrect the Winter League to its former glory, and we should be doing everything possible to get anglers that want to fish Winter League out on the bank, hopefully to preserve this section of the sport. So that's a really good comment. So let's break it down. What's your knowledge of Huntsville, Kenneth and Avon Canal, and or King Sedgemoor Drain?
So the King Sedgemoor and Huntsville is more their drains. I would think they're, well, I'm pretty sure they're summer venues, which is, you know, fantastic. They had a national down there, must be 10 or 12 years ago now, and yeah, probably 12, 13 years ago, and it was a really good national. Lots of fish, you know, big wide drains, lovely part of the country. But February, not sure about that one. Kennet and Avon, so that's a canal. Now, obviously, your best mate Chavy.
Oh yeah,
yeah. We'll come on to Chavy later, and that is a good shout if there's 150 pegs near. We used to fish semi-finals at Pewsey, and obviously you've got the Devisers, which is down the road. Kev Rouse, obviously, I know fairly well. They fish it a lot, and it is nice fishing. But I'm not sure about a commercial venue that can hold 150 pegs close by. That would be the downfall. But if it was changed to a natural venue, you'd have to bring back the semi-finals, and you'd have to think about doing it a different time of year. I think February is the biggest issue for the final. Reason why it's hard, and at the end of the day, it is a Winter League final. It's winter. You know, it's going to be hard wherever you go.
Well, there's a couple of points I'm going to come back onto in a minute, and we've got one more from Charlie Miyagi Dickinson.
Oh, right.
So he's written it in Northern lingo as well. He goes, "Come up, Naaf, for the Winter League final, Babis." Is that babies? I don't know what that means.
Yeah.
Is that... Sorry. Air and Calder navigation has 6 miles of deep canal fishing from Great Heck to Goole, run by Booth Ferry Alliance. It was used for Division 2 National 2024, along with New Junction Canal. Yeah,
that was used, 100%, brilliant fishing. But again, is it good in February?
Yeah, it's the same issue. Is it a winter venue?
Why don't the Barnsley boys and that... Well, I see there's a little league on the Stainie this time of year. That looks quite good, but it's, 40 pegs. I think you'd have the same issue around here, 150 pegs, trying to get everyone on fish. I think it'd be difficult. But, I mean, normally, well, in the past, the drains have been brilliant. This time last year, we were absolutely buzzing of how it could have been the best Winter League final, and everyone was practicing and catching loads of fish, and it was like more fish appearing from everywhere. And this year, it's like...
Well, we'll talk about that in a minute, because I've been wandering the banks as well. It doesn't look good. So there's 2 main points on there, basically. So the time of year is very important, February, but it is a winter league.
Yep. So I think if this is what we're saying, something's got to change if they want to find a different venue. You know, it'd be a bit well, I understand people don't want to travel and stuff like that, and I enjoy the aspect. I used to love fishing semi-finals with Mark 1. Used to have your hard winter league up to Christmas. You'd have a week or so off through Christmas, and then you'd come back and it'd be like, right, when are we going to practice? If it'd be Milton Keynes Canal, Kennet and Avon at Pewsey, you had 2 options: a commercial venue or a... So if you won the league, you chose a commercial or natural venue, depending on what suited your anglers and what you felt.
Oh.
Yeah?
Yeah.
So with the Mark 1 lads, they weren't really commercial orientated. If they won the league, they'd have the choice. So they'd say, right, we'll go Pewsey, Kennet and Avon Canal, wherever the semi-finals were. If they come second, say, chances are the team in our league that won it would have gone on a natural venue. So they've been to Lindo. They've been to Makins, they've been to other venues, so it gives the leagues a bit more incentive, obviously, to try and win the league. And then you go to your semi-final and you'd see there'd probably be 20 teams in the semi-final and only, say, 6 went through, something like that, or 4 maybe. I would say 4 from each semi-final. Maybe not 20 teams, maybe like 12 teams, something.
Were they like, was it country split up into quarters?
Yeah, so they did a north and a south.
So you could do East Anglia in north, west.
Yeah, I think where we are here would be in the north. But then you could go south as well. So it's hard one to police. There was always people saying, well, we've got further to travel, and it's not fair on the people that live right up on near Newcastle. They've got days travel wherever they go, but that was the problem. And then they switched it to this new format. What, 10 years ago now? It must be 10 years ago. With obviously you win your league, you're straight through to the final on the drains in February.
You see, in my head, commercials don't work in the winter because it gets too peggy. Would I be right or wrong?
Nothing works in the winter, does it?
But they seem to exaggerate the pegging in the winter.
Yeah. And the thing is, with commercial fishing in the winter, for 150 pegs, you need a venue that's probably got 350 pegs.
Yeah.
Because once you start putting every peg in, it's, some of these pegs are really tight on venues, and it's bad enough in the height of summer when the fish are feeding really well, let alone in February when everything's like, I don't really want to eat anything.
Well, I'm going to come on to that in a minute when we get onto the fish behaviour. Okay, so there's a lot of questions here then. Another thing in my head is commercial match fishing has a big following.
Yeah.
So if that was knocked out of the Winter League, that could drastically reduce the appeal of the Winter League.
Yeah. Yeah. This is the problem. People, a lot of the hardcore Winter League anglers have fished on canals and natural venues, and they have been for years and years. But there's also a massive following from commercial side of things. You look at all the leagues in the country, though, to qualify, there's only probably 4 or 5 that have all their matches on commercials. The rest are all natural venues.
So, if we say we were in charge, which we're not, thank God.
Yeah.
Right.
I don't want to be in charge.
No, because can you imagine if me and you were in charge? It'd be.
We've all got plenty of ideas, but when it comes to actually doing it, not many people put their hand up, do they?
So it makes sense to keep the commercial anglers involved, in my head, because there's a lot of commercial anglers who like match fishing, and it gives the Winter League more anglers.
Yeah.
And everyone seems to have got a handle on, even if like you guys fish all natural venues, but half of your team know they're not going to be in the team when it comes to the final because they know
that's the problem. For us, we'd like to have a natural venue with 10 anglers. For some other teams, they'd be like, no, we want a venue for 8 anglers on a commercial.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
But I think that balance, you've got it sorted now, so the teams seem to have that bit sorted.
Yeah. So, I don't like the format personally.
So wouldn't it be better keeping the commercial aspect in, but changing the time of year to pre-Christmas, before too much cold water's in all of these systems, and also having a semi-final?
Yeah. So originally the semi-finals would be like now, right? So everyone would be practicing, and instead of having the final, there'd be less travelling as such. They'd be practicing, say, semi-final Milton Keynes Canal, 12 teams, top 4 qualify. Say next week is the semi-final. 4 teams go through to a final in the summer, which is normally, it used to be on the Neen embankment.
You can't have a Winter League final in the summer.
Well, not now you can't. It's physically impossible with the amount of matches and qualifiers and things like that. It just can't happen. So that's why that format is out of the way.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how they can do it. Like I say, please suggest.
The only other way is, I don't. This is not going to work. If you had all the qualifying, you had the league, and it cut off, say, beginning of October. You had the semis end of October and the final in November. No. But that's ramming a lot of matches into a short space of time.
That won't happen, no, because you've got Riverfest finals, you've got Feeder Masters finals, you've got like fish.
But that's
there's so much, and it all basically comes to a head the last week in September, first week in October. That's when it all finishes, and then it's like, right, knuckle down, batten down the hatches. It's Winter League time, and everyone fishes their leagues. Some leagues have their leagues done within 6 on the trot. Some have 8 matches with like a venue and a practice match, and then 2 rounds. And then there's ours that has like 11 weeks straight. Ours is probably the longest drawn out Winter League in the country, I would say.
Yeah.
It's a bit of a slog, which they might address that this year. But got to please everyone. So I don't know. I really don't know. But for me, if they want good fishing and the same format for both commercial and natural venue, then the final's always a Saturday anyway. So you could have a Saturday, if you wanted it back down here, say around Remembrance Sunday in November would be.
So you're saying have the final the following year?
Yeah. But the simple thing is to have the final when it is now, except the fishing's going to be tough. It's a bit of a lottery, which that's winter fishing altogether, and have less teams qualify. That's, I think, the perfect scenario.
So the bottom line is,
we don't want as many teams in the final.
We don't know what to suggest, really.
No.
Just less teams.
No.
It's a time of year, mate. It's a killer, if you ask me. But it is winter.
I mean, this time last year, we'd have been saying, yeah, no problem. We were struggling for like a 14 peg section, which they put the bower in. Benwick last year was not brilliant, but it was, it was fish to be caught. It was, it was brilliant fishing. There was fish everywhere. There was 30 pegs at the bypass that you could catch £30 from. Do you know what I mean? So no one really thought about it. And then because this year everything's been highlighted and it's like, it's not going to be a good final.
Let's get on to local fishing a bit later on.
Righto.
I want something else I want to touch upon that might be relevant. And this is, I was talking to a couple of predator fishing friends about this, and the old light bulb went off my head. Now, a lot of it, people will say, but you should know that already. And I do know this already, but it's been compounded. Down the drain, a week and a half ago, the surface water temperature, or just beneath, was 3.4 to 3.3 degrees.
Right.
That is
cold.
Yeah. Now, these drains are only, 10 foot deep. So if
you're lucky.
If the temperature's that there, it's going to be the same at the bottom. There's no thermocline. It's going to be, the temperature's going to be fairly even throughout the whole drain. Plus it's running off.
Yeah.
So I was lure fishing, and I knew where the fish were. I was presenting really well to them, and I had several big fish, pike and zander, behave in a very strange way.
Right.
Put the lure perfectly in front of them, watched them turn, and it was like they were drunk. There was this. The only fish I've caught the last few weeks have been smaller ones.
Yeah.
So smaller pike, smaller zander, like 3 or 4 pound fish. And I'm thinking, okay. And they were really aggressive. Like, bang. So I'm thinking, I've noticed this twice the last 2 times I've been out, thinking the presentation's wrong. The last time I went, no, it's not. And what I did, just as a complete experiment, I dropped a vertical bait under the boat, just to see if anything would come up and have a look. Again, it's just a plastic lure, nothing, no live baits, nothing. Chuck another rod out in front, pulled the fish in, me thinking that the fish I'll pull in will then peel away and then have a look at this other bait. As I'm just drifting down the drain, several big pike just slowly rose. Well, not several big pike, 1 or 2 big fish just rose up. They're probably 10 pounds. I had a look. Sat there, just mid 2-3 foot off the bottom, looking at this plastic thing. So I pick it up, give it a bit of action. Didn't make any difference. About a minute later, they peel away. I'm thinking, these fish are not feeding.
No.
They are not. They're actually not thinking about feeding.
No.
Because they're not making any effort to catch any of these things up. Even when I put it on their nose, they're not bothered. And I want to try and catch a 20 pound pike from the drains. I'm struggling massively. And I saw a big fish about a month ago, and I couldn't get the bloody thing to take a lure. And I was really amazed. It didn't want it. And it's that, watching this has made me think, and you would know this as your fisheries background, there's obviously a temperature when fish start to shut down.
Mm-hmm.
I don't mean slow down, I mean just stop feeding. Now, I know koi carp enthusiasts, they sometimes won't feed their fish for months because the food, and they change food types as well because it breaks down differently. But is it the bacteria in the fish's gut that won't break down the food at certain temperatures?
I don't know enough about that to comment, but yeah, there's all sort of wives' tales. I shouldn't use bread in the winter and stuff like that. And there's loads of different
So
things.
I spoke to someone who's a bit of a carpophile who likes carp fishing, right? And he was telling me that let me before I get onto that one. The other thing that happened when I was out, I saw one or two fish really shallow, like really shallow, like a foot down. I could not get one or two of them to respond, but I got a couple to take, and they were pike, and they were little jacks, about 3 or 4 pounds. And what they were doing, the ones that I could get to respond were on one side of the drain. The ones that I couldn't get to respond were on the other side, and it corresponded to
The sunlight.
where the sun would have hit it. Now, obviously, these smaller fish are waiting for the sun to hit that water just to warm it up a fraction. And I'm thinking, the smaller fish are more aggressive. Is it because they can warm up quicker to get their digestive system working? Because remember, they're cold-blooded, which then would trigger their feeding behaviour, whereas these bigger fish probably stay colder for longer. I mean, that's my excuses for not catching, basically. But that's my observations of what was going on. I'm just thinking, does that happen? Do you know?
I think it does happen. Yeah, it must do. You know, the colder it is, the less they move, the less they need to eat. It's simple as that.
But the bigger the fish, the longer it takes them to get back going again. Because if you think they're cold-blooded, they've got bigger mass, and once they get cold, they're going to stay colder for longer.
Possibly.
So that's guys. Come on. So
I'm sure there'll be loads of comments. I would think so. Yeah.
So now, speaking to my carp fishing friend, he was saying there's been studies done on carp waters that are not fished very heavily, where the carp do shut down. And there was some carp waters would ban the amount of food going in because obviously it just sat there and didn't break down, just rotted. And then he said on other waters where that were fished heavily, the carp behaved in a different way. They kept feeding. They overcame this cold water problem because of their behaviour with the bait going. So now, with your commercial fishery hat on, what do you think happens in the winter at Rookery?
They don't feed a lot. They feed in windows, definitely. Commercial carp, you know, some days you think you're never going to, you know, take silverfish matches, for example. Some days you get absolutely mithered by them. And you think, why? It's freezing cold and all one catches carp. Because the carp have activated the feed on that day for whatever reason. I think with the way the weather's been this winter, what you had was a strange sort of October, November where the oxygen levels were really low. A lot of fisheries suffered with low oxygen levels. You know, we had to put our areas on in end of October, which
what would have caused that?
You had warmer weather for longer, so the algae lasted longer.
Okay, yeah.
And then what's happening is your daylight hours are getting less. You see?
And the algae's living.
The algae's still living, and then all of a sudden, so you've got longer darkness than you have light. So that was for me.
Just to explain this to people in layman's terms, right? So the weed life and the algae will produce oxygen in daylight because of photosynthesis, which provides oxygen to the water.
Puts oxygen in the water, yeah.
However, when the sun goes in, it takes back that oxygen to breathe, whatever the term would be for aquatic plants, and it decreases the oxygen in the water during the hours of darkness, and that's why in the summer, when we have big algae blooms and thunderstorms, it creates.
So the algae dies. Bang, and as it dies, it takes all the oxygen out of the water.
Yeah.
And then what happens is the most oxygenated water is near the surface. So the fish and anything, you know, relying on the oxygen will come up to the surface because that's the bit that will be oxygenated and will have more oxygen quicker.
Right, okay, but you noticed, so in October this year, commercial fisheries, because of the warmer elongated summer.
Yeah. So we haven't really had a really hot summer. You can't go, oh dear, that's 40 degrees.
September was lovely.
September was nice, and October was nice, and then all of a sudden the weather just dropped real quickly, didn't it?
Yeah.
And we had that massive amount of rain as well, didn't we? Which I think is one of the reasons why the fish here, there, and everywhere on natural venues have been hard to catch. Definitely.
Cool. So going back to commercial carp fisheries in the winter, Do you? Because you don't have a ban on the amount of feed going in, do you?
No, because anglers, simple fact, there's less anglers fishing in the winter. But what I will say is, a lot of people say, "Oh, it's been hammered in the summer. You know, there's loads of bait going in and all stuff like that." Well, I don't believe that. In the summer, the more you feed them, the more they eat. It's like they're on Chinese all the time. Do you know what I mean? They feed and then they go, "Oh, I'm full," and then like 20 minutes later they have another feed, and they're like, honestly, you see it in a festival where the first day the weights are, you think, "Oh, they're good weights." Next day you go, "Cool, they're amazing weights," and the next day it's like
Biblical.
biblical.
Yeah.
So I think it's like anything. If the metabolism's still going and they're eating, because the metabolism's going, they're burning energy, and that's when they need to eat. But when they just stop, you're right. It's like, I don't need to move, and then as it gets a bit warmer, they move a bit more, and they need more food. It's like fuel on the fire, isn't it?
Yeah. 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 Oh, that's cool because I think that's. I'm not out here on the river that the fish are not being caught, but I don't think it's the cold weather that's done them. I think it's because they're not there.
I think there's all sorts.
Yeah. So let's go right. Let's flip there and let's go back to what's happening locally because lots of guys who will be prepping for the Winter League want to know what's been happening. I'm going to just cut in. I walked the bank. I met two guys from Preston on Sunday. They've been down for the weekend practicing. One of the guys, sorry, I didn't get his name, said he had £6.
Yeah.
And he was just beside the bandstand this way. And
This is the problem.
They're all struggling, and they were a bit. They said, Are we being crap?" I said, "No." I said, "There doesn't seem to be many fish in the system."
No.
And it's been the same story, but I have seen lots of anglers fishing as well. So less fish, getting caught more regularly.
And the problem is you've only got like 50 pegs where the bulk of the fish are. So everyone's going to, if they're coming down for a day, they want to catch some fish, they're always going to sit on those pegs.
And guys, I mean, I'm no bias at all. I had noticed lots of people using keep nets, which to me is a bit balmy.
Yeah, the keep net thing is always a bit of an issue. Personally, I wouldn't use keep nets for the welfare, for the outcome of the final, basically. I think,
just magnifying the problem already.
It sort of swings and roundabouts, isn't it? Last year there was 1 billion fish and no one really cared. Yeah. You know what I mean? And this year there's not so many fish and it's a bit more, will have a detrimental effect.
Yeah.
And it is a tough one to police, but I think hopefully for the fishing, try not to use nets. Simple as that. Yeah. Don't use them.
I'm hoping that there's a lot of fish stuck in middle level somewhere.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, because obviously I haven't been back down there on my boat recently. I will get out and have a look. I might have a day, not take any rods and just look. But
I've been everywhere on the old Nene and I can't find any fish.
That's because they're not there. You see them dimpling.
I think hopefully they're hiding brilliantly. That's what I hope. That's what I really hope. But
if next year, right, it's worse than this year,
yeah,
I think we can say, hand on heart, there's a major issue. There's a problem.
Yeah.
Let's just wait and see. But
yeah.
Right. Fishing wise, mate.
Fishing wise,
you had the Ajax 2 weeks ago, didn't you?
I've never known the fishing to be as bad.
I'm not laughing, but
what?
I do know what happened in your section.
Oh,
which we'll get onto later.
Oh, right. Yeah. So there was no match weekend just gone. So the first weekend in Feb, there was no matches anywhere. There was a planned one for Benwick. Not many people booked in because no one wants to be a guinea pig. And
is that the one that Stan and Fizz do?
Yeah, I feel for Stan and Fizz. Normally, it's a fantastic venue, Benwick. I love Benwick normally. I love it because there's a bit of variety with a bit of waggler fishing and stuff on there. And it is such a shame that it is just not happening at the minute. There's just nothing there. Everything's from the pillbox rammed into the town. And, I'm getting questions left, right and centre. Where's the Wintley farm going to be pegged? Find me some fish and I'll tell you where it's going to be pegged. It's going to be extremely tough, and I think everyone's got to accept the fact that this is going to be real bad. And I think the Angling Trust will try and do their best and put people on fish, but you know, when you got old boys coming in the shop saying, I can't get a bite even there, and places that are guaranteed, you know, Fisher Chuck venues, for whatever reason, we don't know. We've had this conversation last week, and it's like Groundhog Day having the same conversation. We don't know why there's no fish feeding at the minute, or where they are, what they've done. I've had a few people ring me up and suggest, oh, why don't you put neem parade in? I think they would love to put neem parade in, but there's a reason why we haven't fished it for 15 years. There isn't pleasure anglers go down there unless you've got your own private garden. You cannot peg it because it's private.
Pricing, even John didn't know this.
What?
That people who buy properties buy a garden.
Yeah.
And that happens along there, like mine, like along here. It's your property and your garden is actually on the river. It's not free. It's not. It's not public access. Everyone's garden's private. So
So you would be able to get probably 20 pegs there if you could push people's chairs and things out of the way and move their boats.
They'd be very happy.
No, I don't think so. So we'd love to put.
Let's get down there in the past then.
Well, we used to. The people didn't attend the garden, so there used to be brambles all the way through. So you used to hack your way through like you did the rest of it.
Wow, people didn't look after it.
No one cared for it. And then obviously as people move in, they go, well, that's your garden. If you want to obtain it, then that's yours. But if middle level need to smash the bank, then they have right to smash the bank up, if you know what I mean. So yeah, that's a no-go anyway.
Yeah.
That's not going to happen. I've been to Floods Ferry. I've been to Stafford's Bridge. I've been to Greenvale on the Old Nene. I've been everywhere looking for fish. Jeff Tuttleby's been to Cockbank. There was a match on Cockbank on Saturday, and after 2 hours they abandoned it because no one caught anything. There was a match at Raveley 2.5, 3 weeks ago now. Bob Fitzjohn won it with 23 amoebas for 6 ounces or something stupid. There was 16 of them, and there was 11 ounces of fish caught between 16 of them.
Wow.
There was a match at Whittlesea Dyke, which we're going to on Sunday in the Hayjacks. That'll be interesting. They didn't peg the lock pit where there's been features and things done before, and there's 30 pounds, you know. Basically, the whole of Whittlesea Dyke's fish are in 4 pegs rammed up to the lock. I wonder why that is. And then I think 4 ounces won that. Basically from the bridge to the other bridge on the disabled pegs. The World Creek, someone suggested that. It'd be, again, a lovely venue to go to, but we're not allowed to fish it. It's free fishing, and you can't fish it for whatever rules. Now, I've got a question. Like, around here, we've got a lot of little parachute free fishing, like March is free fishing, World Creek is free fishing, Benwick Town Stretch is free fishing, and the Welland was free fishing up until last year, wasn't it?
Yes, yeah.
Is it just this area where there has this weird parish council rule? Is there any other parts of the country that have it? I can't think of any. All over the country, they're owned by clubs and they've got proper pegs. And I mean, it's a question for people listening.
The creek must be run by the World
Creek Trust.
Yeah, something like that.
No, see, it's like someone goes, "Oh, I don't know, I don't know."
I like the fact that it's actually free fishing.
Yeah,
quite nice if there was. But you see, the creek's a classic example. Can you imagine the access?
We've got a road either side.
Well, you can't park on the main road.
No,
and you can't park on the other road because no one can get access up and down it. It's impossible. There's 3 or 4 spots you can abandon your car.
Yeah,
along the whole stretch between the village and Nordelf.
But then when you go out back towards Popham's O from that bit there's probably 50 pegs you'd get from the lock gate up to the Globe pub, where you could near enough park behind your peg nearly, couldn't you?
Yeah, but you want to catch something.
Yeah, well, I'm used to catching bugger all, mate. So.
Oh dear.
The only place where there seems to be a few fish is what we call Carrot Wash, which is Ponders Bridge. I've never fished it myself. I've been there quite a few times to watch matches being weighed in, and the Whittlesea Club own that. They catch a lot of fish certain time of the year. I think even Windmill Steve won a match with about 50 odd pounds, remember, on sweet corn.
Oh, yes, yeah.
And then I think the second was like 40 odd pound, Rob Lincoln. Now, it's tight there. The pegging's tight, but you could get a 14 peg section on there and catch a few fish. They're not very big, but you'd get bites. And I say get bites, and that's the key thing. So these are all venues where they're looking to put 14 pegs on, and, well, Factory Banks are no-go. All the fish around either into the lock pit, or when the water level comes up, they go in the tunnels under the town away from the cormorants, or they're in the marina. Ramsey, St Mary's is a no-go. There's only about 8 pegs worth of fish, and that's not going to happen. Ramsey Narrows, which we used to fish, used to be brilliant. You'd get 30 pegs all in a row. Cannot get a bite there. I've been everywhere. We've been to Popham Zoo with a whip looking for fish because we thought maybe the fish had got lost and gone down there. The 20-foot, this beggars, the rest of them, there's nothing. It's like, where have all the fish vanished to? I'm just hoping it's one of them years where we just go, do you remember? 2024, 2025, it was awful, terrible. And then the next year, it was rigid again. That's what I'm hoping. That's what I'm really hoping, Andy. So moving on to March, which I think they planned for 4 sections at March.
How many pegs in a section?
28. So 4 lots of 28. So pegs 1 to 14, which is A section as we know it, fishing March.
Hold on a minute, I'm doing my maths. 56, that's 112 pegs.
Yeah, which last year would have been piece of piss. This year, you've got perhaps 75 pegs where you'll catch fish. Like, consistently.
Well, to do that, you've got to use a bypass.
Yeah.
And you've got to start at the famous section.
What, where all the, Marina Mouth?
No, where I...
Yeah, well, this is what I'm saying. You're going to have a section, as we know it, which is pegs 1 to 30 normally. 1 being, like, normally a mega peg, and 30 being Van Gaal's postbox peg, the culvert peg, yeah? So you've got 28 pegs from there to there. So the first 14 pegs will start from near where you obviously smashed Sir Bob and all the rest of them.
That's been empty, hasn't it?
Right. So since you were there, you've ruined that. You've absolutely ruined that section. So there's no fish from there till you get to disabled platforms. You're looking for 3 ounces is what they're catching. It's probably the fairest section out of the whole of the venue, though. I know it sounds daft. It's consistently shit. But honestly, that's the only way to look at it. It is consistently dog shit. It's not like one end's will catch £3, the other end you don't get a bite. No one gets a bite. It's literally, it's proper grim. But then as soon as you get to disabled pegs, from there to the culvert, it just gets better the further you go to the culvert. So what you've got then is you've got a section. If your draw, say it's A on the day, it might be C, D, I don't know, whatever they choose. But say it's A 1 to 14, and then 15 to 28, say. Well, the higher the number, the more points you're going to get because you're nearer the town.
Yeah.
Because there's more fish. So that's one section. Then the next section is planned to be used from behind the swimming pool next to the town bridge, 14 pegs. So that'll probably take you, let's work out, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It'll probably take you to about 3 pegs or 4 pegs to below Health Centre Bridge, just down here. Yeah? So that's 14 pegs. That will probably be dominated by the pegs near the swimming pool. Fair enough. There's fish through there, like most consistent bit of the venue in the open match. Then the next section will be basically from around Health Centre Bridge, missed underwater, through near the turning bay, and finish just before the stile somewhere.
Which again is probably the second most consistent.
Yeah, but it'll still be dominated by the same
peg. Yeah.
Then the next 2 sections, so the next 14, I think will be nice fishing. So that'll be to the right of the allotment style or the high peg, and probably finish just on near the scout hut, somewhere there. That's 14 pegs. That'll be all right. That'll be a nice section. The next 14 pegs, basically, the lower the number you draw, the more fish you're going to catch. The further you get towards that bypass and near that turning bay, the worse it's going to be. So that's 3 full sections we've got in
And then the section of doom.
Then you've got
My lord.
the one that I've drawn every frigging week.
It's the Winter League final in 2 weeks' time.
Yeah. Have you seen the weather forecast? It's horrendous.
It was 12 degrees earlier.
We're getting today, tomorrow, and the next day, and then it's going.
Yeah. I was going to say, if it stayed mild.
If you went out here now, the next 3 days, you'd think, what are they all moaning about? You'd catch loads of fish. And it was noticeable whenever we had around. Do you remember that like hairdryer day where it went from the day before, it went from 3 degrees, and the next day it was 15, 16 degrees? Do you remember? And the whole of the river switched on. There was fish you were catching, and
those fish will move out of the marina and fit into the bypass section if it gets warm.
We need to pray for some warm weather. That's what we need.
Yeah.
Because the roach have had enough. They've all gone, no thanks, mate. I can't feed anymore. I can't take this anymore.
Do you think that's cold weather or just a lack of them?
No, lack of them. And then the skimmers are going, oh, there's not so many roach about this year. I've got a bit more of a chance to feed. And they've been caught more, so they're harder to catch than they normally are. And the rudd, well, they're all ghost rudd at the minute. I don't know where they are. But anyway, the final will be terrible. This is what I'm getting at. I really wish it wasn't. You know, for me, I've had an awful winter's fishing.
Well, you've missed out the hayjack because you had a section on the bypass, didn't you?
No, this was in the open. We haven't had it anymore.
Sorry, the March Open.
So yeah, basically, as soon as you got to past the scout hut, the next best weight was probably £1. All there. That's like 20 odd pegs from the scout hut to the bypass bridge. There's fish to be caught though. There was fish to be caught,
but not at the bypass.
Not at the bypass. No.
This is what I don't understand. Right.
This sums up the fishing on the fens. The night before, Bob went and pegged out, and he rung me about what must be 5 o'clock. He said, "Do you know what? I fancy the bypass tomorrow. There's fish topping everywhere." And I said, "Do you know what, Bob? I do as well." I said, "I wouldn't mind drawing there. If there's a few fish up there, I think you'll do really well because they haven't been pressured. The fish up there, they were pressured at the start of the season, and then we've not been up there since sort of end of November." I said, "Yeah, I fancy drawing up there, Bob. I think you're right." He goes, "There's fish topping everywhere as far as you can see." Anyway, next day I go in the draw bag. I drew 95. I'm thinking, I actually quite fancy it today. Bob said there's some fish up there. I know it's cold, but there'll be a slow start. Probably not going to catch for a good hour and a half, probably. And then when I catch, I'll catch really well. And I'm like right in the middle of the section. So you're sort of not perfectly placed, but I would be happy with that in a team match because you feel you'd be able to compete with the anglers to your right if the fish did move because they'd be the right stamp when they moved. So I weren't too despondent. Set up eventualities from an absolute grueler to crash bam, thank you ma'am. Do you know what I mean? For 2 hours fishing. So I got the international set up and I'm looking at the water and I think, looking there, no, it'd be an hour and a half before we catch roach and then it'll just be brilliant. No, it was awful. No one had a bite.
That is because you've got boats opposite you.
Yeah,
you think they'd be
and where I was, there was people living on them boats. And last year, when it was freezing cold, the peg slightly to my left, I think it's called Lady Jane. I think is it Lady Jane or Lady Hay or something like that. It's a grey boat, big red sign on, right? Now I had £58 from that peg last year after the Winter League final. So it'd been bashed up big time, and I still had, and it was like biblical fishing. I drew at the bypass last year 4 or 5 times, and the lowest weight I had was £26 last year. Right, I've been up there once, and I blanked this year.
How many guys are in your section?
10,
and no one had a bite.
No one had a bite. Bear in mind, it was absolutely bitter.
But
a lot of people didn't stay on their boxes. I mean, after an hour and a half. No one had caught anything. I was gone, mate. I walked into town. wanted to see and try and learn something, because when you're not catching fish, you're not, not learning anything. And I thought I'll go back for the last hour and a half, because I thought I'll get there, and went back. There's only 4 people left, and then no one caught anything. So section money got drawn out, and good old Timmy Bates won it.
Dad won it, didn't he? Yeah.
So I don't know what to say really. It's not looking good.
It's not at all, is it?
The only venue that there's a few fish again was going to be really hard is the Barrett. We'll see. Last year it was in for the first time, and it was terrible, but that was due to the fact that we had a real sharp overnight frost, and that just honestly, people going practicing and catching plenty of fish, 5-6 pounds. And we had the last round of the hayjack on there. They fished the first 8 pegs above the lock, and the lowest weight was 2.5 pound, and the top weight was 5 pound. And to be honest, that's good.
That is good at the minute, isn't it?
Yeah.
Have you got a hayjack this weekend?
Yeah, so the hayjack's on this weekend. I've just found out from Bob there's 4 sections at March, so basically starting from outside here near the health centre bridge, going back towards the bypass, basically finish on the Scout Hut. And then there's 1 section below the lock on Whittlesey Dyke, and 1 section above the lock on the Bower. So yeah, can't wait. It'd be nice to draw on a few fish at March, because I've been at March, apart from I had 1 day when I had 26 pound when I drew near the allotment style. I had a mega days fishing in 1 section of the Winter League. Other than that, my best weight in March this year is 5 pound.
That's right. And last year, if you didn't catch £10, you were last.
The lowest weight I had last year was £13, and that was like one of the best weights at March on that day. And you think, wow, what a contrast!
It's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah.
Sorry, man. I'm multitasking, not very well.
No, you're fine. You're fine. So yeah, that's as far as I know. Angling Trust did say that they're leaving it as late as possible to try and hope that the weather would change and there'd be a few fish turn up, because they do. The fish can just switch on like anything, and like what we said, one day you go down the bypass, there's fish stopping everywhere. The next day you go, you can't get a bite. And I think that's not just the drains, I think that's commercials everywhere.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like we were saying earlier about the temperature slight increase. It's been freezing cold, and all of a sudden it goes warm for 3 days, and the fish have a feed, and then also it goes straight back down. It's cold again, isn't it? So, yeah.
Well, I was looking at Derek, because I was going to ask you about some local matches, if there's been any. I know Derek has sent me just to change tack totally, the Spilsby A Winter League Series scores. I'm just going to. Could he send them to? He hasn't sent me another update from the match from 2 weeks ago. He's just sent me the Winter League at the minute. So we're just going to cut to this quick. So in first place at the minute with 6 points is Dave Dean. Mick Stamp second with 11 points. Dave Ashmore's third with 12. Mark Cook's fourth with 14. Derek himself is fifth with 15, alongside Kev Wilson and Paul Dent. But I'll put this up here so people can see it. So they've got, I think Derek sent me a message saying it's the best 5 out of 7 scores, so it's still wide open. So that's good that those guys are still getting out there. What's happened locally then, apart from the March Open, which was a grueler?
Well, like I say, last Saturday Whittlesey went to Cockbank. That match got abandoned. The week before they had a match at Whittlesey Dyke, and that's one with 4 ounces. The only club that are catching a few fish, but it's only like 5 or 6 of them, is Ramsey, and it's the same old. £12, £13 will win it, but it'll be pegs 1 and 2 or peg 6. Yeah, it's just everything's a bit predictable. Hembrook, which is normally fantastic, when there's lots of rain and stuff about Hembrook at St Neots. We've had a few matches on there, and again that's abysmal as well. So it's not just here, it's sort of nationwide.
When is the Winter League final? What date?
Saturday the
22nd?
Yeah.
So we'll have a podcast on the 19th. Go out just before it. So we'll have an update on
what the river's doing.
Yeah, what the river's doing, guys. For those of you who are...
Yeah, I think so. This weekend is the 9th of Feb, so it's sort of hayjack. Then the following weekend is Saturday. Stan and Fizz are running an open match on the Bower or wherever they might be thinking of putting this other section. And then on the Sunday is the March teams match, as Bob's calling it, where you sort of 5 anglers from each team can practice. So that'd be interesting. Yeah. So I think as from sort of next week, a lot of the teams come down practicing as well. So you'll see just how bad it is.
Yeah.
I've never known it like this. Never. Any team could win it this year. Any team. It's the same every year. It's Peggy, but it's even more Peggy this year.
What's deeper like?
It's winter commercial fishing. It's no different. It will never be. You know, the fish are in there. The same pegs produce. Again, you could be sat one end of the lake and the other end of catching loads of fish. It's winter bingo, and that's the nature of the beast. And it's frustrating, but it is what it is.
Mate, we've had an hour of depressing news.
But there's no positive news, is there? That's the thing. I sound like the Grim Reaper. But
oh dear. Right, I tell you what we'll do. We'll bring this to a close, and then in 2 weeks' time, hopefully, we've got some good news for.
Hopefully, these fish have appeared that have been hiding for so long.
And Matt, people out there can answer my question about fish behaviour in cold weather.
Yeah.
But am I right? Do the bigger the fish, the more they shut down for longer because it takes longer to heat up that mass to get the digestive system working. I don't know. I'm intrigued about it. And what happens on commercials? I think each commercial.
They just stop feeding. They don't need to feed.
But there's still bait. So I think each commercial is slightly different depending on what bait's allowed and what stock's in there and what type of carp. Because rookery fish as well in the winter at times.
It can, yeah. Yes and no. It's not, it's not even a patch of what it is in the summer, but it's, how can I put it? There isn't any fishing good in the winter. The best venue in the country for winter fishing was March.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, but we're not going back there. I'll tell you what we'll do in 2 weeks' time. You can perhaps give us a heads up what work's been happening at rookery, because that's been quite interesting.
Yeah.
But we're
going to net. So we've been desilting Jay. So not this week, next week. If you want to come down, we're going to be cropping and taking the perch and roach out of Jay. So
we'll try and catch it on camera. So keep watching. Right, should we bring this to a head?
Definitely, yeah.
Yeah, because otherwise
we might be crying.
We're going to start crying. Right, guys, get your comments in, and we'll see you in a couple of weeks' time.